Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I'll be showing you guys how to extract share repurchases directly from the financials. And within this script, what we're going to be doing is we're going to extract bulk data from the SEC. And within these filings, we're going to look up all the share buybacks for each of the quarters we download. And we can download historical financials for all the companies that reported each quarter. So within this first section, we need to pass in the year and the quarter we want to download. So here's an example of the naming convention. In this tutorial, I'm just going to focus on quarterly data for this year. So I'm going to go ahead and run line 11. Now for each of the years and quarters, we need to build a URL. So I'll go ahead and run the next line. Now that we have all of our URLs, we can pass them into this function, which will download all the data into your working directory. So if we open up this function, we're going to use download file by passing in our URLs. Since these are zipped files, we need to set our destination, and then I create an empty folder and unzip the files there. So that's what this block is doing, but I'm not going to be running it since I have already downloaded the files. So you will see a separate folder for each of the years and quarters. Now within each of these folders, we need to extract the numerical variables and also the metadata or company info. And all we're passing in is our folder name. So if we open up this first block, I'm just going to read in the contents, which are stored in this text file. And then I'm going to row bind all the contents. And the same goes for the metadata. So I'm just going to import these text files. So I'll go ahead and run these two blocks. Now let's take a look at these two tables. So this is all the numerical data for all the companies that have reported this year so far. But as you notice, we don't have any tickers to match up this data. So we're going to use our other table. And we're going to look up the companies using this table, using the CIK codes. So that's all we really need this table for. But our main focus will be this numerical table. So what we're going to do now is build a function that'll help us look up the tickers for each filing. So let's close this table out. So in this next section, we have get tickers, where we're just going to build a table to extract all the tickers from the filings. So in this next block, we're going to pass in our subtable and get all the tickers. So if we open up this function, all we need from the subtable is the CIK number, the name, and the instance. We're going to do a bit of formatting on the instance, since this is where the ticker symbol is located. And we're going to go ahead and return that as a data frame. So let's close this out, run this function, build the table, and remove any tickers that have any numbers within the symbol itself. So if we run that and take a look at that table, we now have a table of approximately 4,400 different tickers. And now we're going to be able to look up any company using the CIK number. All right, so let's close this out. Now in this next function, we're going to pass in all the tickers and hopefully extract share repurchases if they are available. Let's open up this function. So when we pass a ticker, it's going to use our table that we just built to look up the CIK. And then we're going to look up all the filings for that specific ticker. Once we have the unique filings for that ticker, we're going to go ahead and pass those filings as a list into this function and subset all the numerical values for that specific filing. And we're also going to be adding the file date as a column and return that as a table. Once we have all the values, we're going to subset and look up the weighted average number of diluted shares, which will be handy once we're doing calculations. But across the board, it seems like the tag for share repurchases is this one. So we're going to look up the tag if it's available. And once we return that into temp, we're only going to extract the date, the value, the file date, and the number of quarters. We're going to do a bit of formatting on the dates for the ending quarter date and the filing date. We're going to add a ticker as a column. And we're also going to be adding the number of shares outstanding. Once we have the table, we're going to order by date. And we're only going to be returning instances where the value is greater than 0. So let's go ahead and minimize this function. I'm going to go ahead and run it. Now we can pass in all the tickers in our table. So within this next block, we're going to hopefully catch all the tickers that had share repurchases within those quarters. If they didn't, this function will return an error. So that's why I wrapped this in this try function. So all of this data will get returned as a list. Now we need to row bind by using our bind list. This does take a while, so I'm just going to read in the table. And if we take a look at that table, and now we have this table with the share repurchase amount, the file date, the number of quarters, the ticker, and the number of shares outstanding. Now I'm going to go ahead and read in some historical stock data so that we can use this value and calculate the approximate or estimated number of shares repurchased by using the median price given the number of quarters that we should look back. So I'm going to be extracting all the unique tickers for all the stocks that had share repurchases from that table. So I'm going to be saving that into this variable called tickers. I'm going to create a new environment to store all the data, get symbols from Yahoo Finance, and send all the data to that new environment. Once this is done running, we can go ahead and extract the adjusted closes and store it into this variable called data. I'm going to be adjusting the column names by dropping the dot adjusted so that we're only left with the symbol for column names. We're going to fix any NAs. Now this does take a while since we have a lengthy list of tickers to get data for. So I'm going to go ahead and read in the data. So your table should look something similar to this. Now that we have this table, we can go ahead and calculate the quarterly returns for each of these stocks. So I'm going to be using apply. For each column, calculate the quarterly return. I'm going to merge all the returns together and reassign the column names. So I'll go ahead and read that in. We take a look at RETs. Now we have quarterly returns for each of these stocks. So I'll go ahead and close this out. Let's go to our next section. Now I need to reassign tickers to only those stocks that we were able to calculate quarterly returns for. So I'll go ahead and reassign tickers. And for each of those stocks, we're going to pass them as a list into this function. So for each of the stocks, we're going to extract our share repurchases. We're going to extract the quarterly return during the reporting period, and we're also going to extract the return 1 quarter after. In this next line, we're going to extract the median price within the reporting quarter so that we can use that price to calculate the number of shares that were repurchased. So once we have the average price for each of the quarters, we're going to divide the value, which is the dollar value, by the median price within that reporting quarter, and that'll get saved into the estimated shares repurchased. Once we have that value, we can add it to the number of shares outstanding, and we're going to divide the estimated shares by that value to get the approximate percentage of shares repurchased out of the number of shares outstanding. So that'll give us an important metric that we can use to backtest later on. So I'm going to go ahead and close this out and run it. Once that's done running, we can R-bind all of our results and omit any NAs. So I'll go ahead and run these 2 lines. And we'll take a look at our table. And now we have a table with the quarterly return during the reporting period, along with 1 quarter after, the median price during the reporting period, the estimated number of shares repurchased, and the percentage of shares out of the number of shares outstanding. As I mentioned, we're going to be using this table to test whether or not share repurchases have a positive effect on stocks. But for now, this concludes the video, guys. I hope this was useful information. I'll leave a link down in the description area to the Patreon where you can find the script. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.